I think we're live. Well, it was a terrible game that turned into a wonderful game. We'll dig into the Dodgers' stunning comeback in Denver, talk about another clunker from Walker Buehler. We'll pay tribute to the great Willie Mays, and we will talk about the Dodger City Connect uniforms. All of that live. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. And if you happen to be live with us right now, thank you for being with us. I thought this might be a podcast episode where we wouldn't even talk much about the game that happened. But it turns out there's a lot to talk about from this game. But if this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. That guy next to me is Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use code all lowercase lockedonmlb for a first deposit match up to $100. And before we get started, just want to let you all know, if you're watching, you can see Vince isn't in his usual recording location. He is at the airport in Phoenix, I believe. He's traveling he's been in Phoenix for the draft combine stuff for work, and now he's going to Alabama for the Rick Wood game, which we'll be talking more about in the second segment when we talk about Willie Mays. But he had found a quiet spot that turned out to not be as quiet because it's where all the kids in the airport want to be. So when he is talking, you will hear some background noise. Just understand it's unavoidable because the alternative was kicking a bunch of kids. And I told Vince no, because I am a father and I don't believe in kicking children, Vince.
Man, the amount of times I wanted to yell right now has been a lot, but hopefully they let me get through this. And now we got an airport announcement. But either way, crazy Dodger game. I got to watch it. Yeah, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, it was crazy is a great word because this game sucked for most of the game. Like Walker Buehler was bad, gave up 7 runs and I think got through 4 innings maybe. He was bad, maybe his worst start of the season. And he hasn't been great most of the time. He's had one really good start. And other than that, he's been questionable. And, again, it's Coors Field, who knows, but his command was way off. Like he was throwing way too many pitches right down the middle. And even the Rockies, they're major league hitters. They have some decent hitters and they hit the ball off him. They weren't hitting many good pitchers' pitches. They were hitting a lot of hitters' pitches. And, we'll see. I was kind of dreading if Walker Buehler is going to be the story of this game because there's not that much new to say because we've already said, well, the Dodgers are going to give him as much time as they can because they don't really need to make a decision on him until October. And so they're just going to keep running him out there. And I was like, are we really going to have to make like a full segment or even 2 segments saying that again? But luckily the Dodgers saved us. So we will dig into Buehler a little bit in the second segment, but let's talk about the good news because the Dodgers battled back. They battled a few times, and when they were down 8-4, Shohei Ohtani almost cut the lead 8-6, except for a great play by Brenton Doyle. Those of you who were watching the postcast before you came over here, you noticed that they didn't even have time to update the headline on the postcast. It was talking all about the Rockies evening the series with the Dodgers because of Brenton Doyle. And yeah, Brenton Doyle had a great game, but the Dodgers in the 9th inning said, hey, we can have great games too. Bottom of the lineup did their job, got on base. Kike Hernandez walked. Miguel Vargas blooped in a single. Pages walked first, right? And then Vargas singled. Then Kike walked. At some point, somebody got out. Rojas?
No, Kike struck out.
Oh, Kike struck out. Rojas got on. That's right. That makes more sense. Kike striking out. But then the Dodgers pinch hit for Chris Taylor. Jason Heyward came up, and after looking really bad on a changeup, he got a pitch he could drive, and he hit it off the foul pole in right field for a grand slam to make it 9-8. And, really, I was hoping for him to do anything, get on base, do something, because as long as he didn't get out, that meant Shohei Ohtani would come up representing the tying run. I was really hoping Heyward wouldn't do what he does a lot, which is hit a hard ground ball to second base, because that would have ended the game. But we would absolutely take a grand slam. And even then, it's like, Steven Nelson even said during the at-bat to Heyward, well, a grand slam doesn't kill the Rockies, but it does mean that Shohei comes up representing the tying run. And then a couple pitches later, Heyward hits the grand slam. And so even then, Vincent, I wonder how you were feeling, sitting in the airport watching it. Like, did you feel like, wow, the Dodgers are going to come back? Or did you feel like, well, at least they made it close?
Yeah, after I started watching right after Ohtani got robbed by Doyle, and after that I was like, okay, that might have been, they might have a couple chances here, but that might have been the last chance they get, and then they didn't. And then when Heyward hit the grand slam, it was a matter of, okay, well, Ohtani's going to tie this right now. Like, he had already hit the big home run earlier in the game, and he's been on fire since getting to Coors yesterday, and you kind of felt that all the momentum was on their side. And then he gets the base hit, and then you're like, okay, then Will Smith doesn't get timeout on a full count and strikes out looking, and then you're like, okay, well, at least Freddie, Freddie's due for a double, he can tie it up. And then Shohei moves to second, and you're like, okay, well, Freddie can tie it up. And then obviously you're like, oh, well, then he gets intentionally walked, and you just never know with Teo. And they brought in another reliever, and he throws hard, and Teo, just like Heyward, looked bad on another pitch before that, and then ended up, obviously the Dodgers got maybe a little bit of help or makeup call, whatever you want to call it, for blue, but it was just fun to watch.
Yeah, Bud Black and Jake Cave were both very unhappy about the non-strike 3 call on Teoscar Hernandez. He probably went. I don't think it was, obviously it wasn't nearly as blatant as Darren Ruff in 2021, which will always be our reference point for Dodgers check swings involving the Dodgers. Yeah, he probably went. Umpires miss that call sometimes, and you never know if, like, how sometimes in the NBA, Vince, or any basketball game, like, the rules change at the end of the game. Refs don't want to take the game into their own hands, so they don't call as many fouls. And, I don't know if Lance Barksdale had that same, well, I don't want this game to end on a questionable check swing. Or maybe he just didn't think he went. Either way, Teoscar Hernandez got a new life, and then he hit a 3-run homer. And, it was kind of a classic Teo homer of what we've seen this year, driving at opposite field, right center field. Looked very much like the RBI double that he hit yesterday. Just, it was awesome. And at that point I was like, holy crap. I was just watching with my wife. Both of my sons are off with their friends. It's just me and my wife watching on the couch. And like, it was one of those moments, and people on Twitter were comparing it to the Andrew Toles grand slam in Colorado. And that was my first thought too. I remember where I was for that one. I was actually in Elsinore on my parents' couch for that one. But just like, this is one of those games that we're going to remember, I think.
Yeah, definitely. The Toles one, I remember I was working for Bleacher Report the first time around, and I was watching at the office. So I remember that. And, the Heyward one, I was on the phone with my girlfriend, and she doesn't like when I'm talking to her as I'm watching the game, but she knew the deal beforehand. So then, she's telling me something, and I react like, oh, and then she's like, what happened? And I was like, oh, the Dodgers made a 9-8. And then she's like, oh, okay. Because she had talked about the game earlier, and I was like, all right. But yeah, it's definitely one, it's a lot easier to remember because I'm in a weirder spot than normal watching this Dodger game. But it's one of those that this is what we talk about when we talk about the season-long journey. Like, if you only care about what happens in October, then, like, you don't get to enjoy this game. And we did get to enjoy this game because we know that we'll worry about October in October, and this was fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point that, we've talked about so many times how important it is to enjoy the regular season, because, like, this is why we love baseball. Even if the Dodgers don't win the World Series this year, right now, tonight, we had a lot of fun watching this game, and we had the highs and lows of a game. And, these things are definitely things that you should remember. We've got a couple comments in the chat about our listeners whose dads were Dodger fans and both happened to pass away recently. Both thinking of their dads. And I love that about baseball. Like, you think, and I'm actually going to talk in the next segment about when we're talking about Willie Mays and talk about that family connection, like sitting there watching this with my wife and then texting my sons about what happened. It was awesome. I'm texting with my brother because he was off playing Magic with his friend because he's a nerd instead of watching the Dodger game. So I'm telling him all about it. Like, it was so much fun. It reminded me of the Steve Finley grand slam win that my brother was texting me about, because I couldn't watch that game because I lived in Utah and it was before MLB TV and stuff. So he was texting me about that game. Like, it just so much fun, the family connections and everything. So we're going to come back more to talk about from this game, talk some more about Bueller, maybe a little bit more of the positive stuff. Then we'll talk about Willie Mays passing away. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. With PrizePicks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a PrizePicks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections, and you're locked in. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 fantasy sports app. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB in the PrizePicks app for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Hey, we are back. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks to you, those of you who are here with us live. Thank you to our everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. You can also go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Text back and forth with us. Get our thoughts before the podcast on everything that's going on in Dodgerland. It's just a few bucks a month with a free 14-day trial. Also, you can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels over on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. Pete Fox is back. He is back doing the postcast over on Locked On Sports LA after most Dodger games. So you can check that out. And remember, you can catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app simply by searching for Dodgers. I listened to some of this game on the SXM app again because, as I mentioned, on the Sirius radio in the car, you only get the home team broadcast most of the time, and nobody has time to listen to the Rockies home radio broadcast. But I did listen to Tim Neverett and Rick Monday for a little while. I was driving my son and his friends around for a while this evening, earlier in the game. And Neverett and Monday talked a lot about how it was the Brenton Doyle game. Brenton Doyle had 4 hits. He made the great catch on Shohei Ohtani's, what should have been a 2-run double or triple. Brenton Doyle turned it into the third out of the inning, saving at least 2 runs, possibly more. It could have been Shohei Ohtani in scoring position with Will Smith coming up. So it was looking like the Brenton Doyle game, like the postcast said. But ultimately it wasn't because of Jason Heyward and then Teoscar Hernandez. But I also do want to take just another minute to shout out Shohei Ohtani because he came up in that 9th inning after Heyward's grand slam. He was the first batter facing a new pitcher, a guy who throws 100 miles an hour. And Shohei would have loved to hit a game-tying home run. And for him to hit an opposite field single in that situation, I thought was huge. It happened to be his hardest hit ball of the day, 115 miles an hour. He had 4 hard hit balls again today, including 3 of them, well over 100 miles an hour. But to not sell, I feel like there have been times this season when Shohei Ohtani would have been dead set on hitting a game-tying home run in that situation. And I loved that base hit, even though obviously I would have rather had a home run because that ties the game. After his single, there's still a very good chance the Dodgers lose the game. But he did just started another rally and ended up scoring the tying run anyway on Teoscar's home run. So I thought that was at least worth shouting out a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe this is a leadoff Ohtani, so he knows the deal and he knows when to pick his spots.
Yeah, absolutely. Another listener whose dad passed away recently, man, this is, it's rough. And you know, let's talk about Willie Mays. I don't know that we have much else to say about Bueller, right? I feel like we've said it, right?
He's been bad in Colorado his entire career, but he's also been good everywhere else for the most part his entire career. And now he's just not great on both ends. So we don't know what to say. We don't know what's going to happen. They're going to give him, the rest of the season or whoever to figure out, but he might not be on the postseason roster potentially if this is how it keeps going.
Yeah, and as our buddy Sal told us here in the comment that I just put on the screen, in the post-game interview, Bueller apparently said he's willing to take a couple weeks or a month off to reset. I don't know if that's something that's actually a possibility or if that was just him venting. I guess we'll see what happens. But during this game, we got news. The Giants tweeted out, and then it was announced on the broadcast that Willie Mays passed away at the age of 93. Obviously, Willie Mays played almost his entire career with the Giants, both in New York and San Francisco. He was a huge part of that Dodgers-Giants rivalry coming from New York to the West Coast. And personally, in my life, it is a big impact because I've told this story before. So everydayers, this might be a repeat, but repetition is important, I guess. So my dad grew up in La Puente, right outside of LA. And his dad grew up in Arkansas, was a Cardinals fan, and they were baseball fans, but his dad was basically a Cardinals fan, but living a couple thousand miles from St. Louis, it was just we're just generic baseball fans. And then when my dad was 4 years old, the Dodgers moved to LA. And once LA had a team, the Snyders became a Dodger family. And immediately my grandpa and everybody, we became Dodger fans. 20 years later, I was born into that Dodger family. The one exception is my Uncle Jim. Uncle Jim was 4 years older than my dad, still is 4 years older than my dad. Thankfully, they're both still with us. Uncle Jim was old enough that in the 1954 World Series, he was 4 years old, 4.5 years old, and 5.5 years old, and was old enough to remember the catch by Willie Mays. And he chose that day, Willie Mays made that catch off the bat of Vic Wertz. Uncle Jim chose the Willie Mays as his favorite player and the Giants as his favorite team. So 3 years later, when the Dodgers moved to LA, Uncle Jim was like, sorry, you guys can be a Dodger fan. I'm still a Giants fan. Uncle Jim still to this day is a Giants fan because Willie Mays was his first favorite player. And my dad, growing up, Willie Mays was his first favorite player too, because it was his big brother's favorite player. You know how brothers are. And so my dad, even though he was a Dodger fan, his favorite player was Willie Mays. And that's something that's hard for us to kind of picture. Like if one of us, our favorite player was Buster Posey, but we're Dodger fans, but that's what brothers are like, what families are like. And so my dad still, he Willie Mays is his favorite player of all time. And I, of course, never got to see Willie Mays play. His last season was 4 years before I was born. But because of that, because of Uncle Jim and my dad, I've always felt a connection to Willie Mays. And while there's some members of the Giants-Dodgers rivalry who I just hate because of the rivalry, Willie Mays is a guy who I've always loved because of the rivalry, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where Madison Bumgarner, guys like that gave us a lot of reasons to not like him, beyond respect, and Willie Mays wasn't like that as far as we know. He was, just really, really good and obviously one of the best baseball players we've ever seen. And kind of, we lost Jerry West not that long ago in the NBA side. And I remember someone had mentioned when Kobe passed about the NBA, how almost all of the legends of NBA were still alive. Now we've lost a few now, Bill Russell, Jerry West, Kobe in the past few years. Baseball, there's a lot of guys that have already passed, but Willie Mays was the one that, he still has connections to the Negro Leagues. I'm heading to Alabama right now to go to the game at Rickwood Field that was, partially put on because of his legacy. And now, we're heading down where we're not going to have Willie Mays, but he still leaves that legacy. And he's a guy that goes beyond Dodgers-Giants rivalry. He's just, baseball lore.
Yeah. And Willie Mays just put out a statement the other day, apologizing that he wouldn't be able to be at Rickwood Field as much as he wanted to be, because that was his hometown field growing up. That was the field that he dreamed of playing on, because as a black kid growing up in the 30s and 40s, like your dream was to play, for the Birmingham Black Barons for Willie Mays, and he eventually got to play in the major leagues, and eventually the Negro Leagues team he played for became major leagues. But at the time, that was his dream, and that was the first field he played on as a teenager. That was his home field. And that statement that he put out ended with him saying how amazing it is that Rickwood Field is still here, and so am I. And and it was true at the time, and it's just heartbreaking. And it's hard to be too heartbroken about a 93-year-old man who lived a great life. We said it when Vince Scully died. When you live a great life like that, you deserve you deserve peace at some point. But if you haven't listened yet, somebody tweeted out the audio of Dave Fleming on the Giants radio broadcast announcing to his listeners that Willie Mays had passed away. You should check it out. It will tear you up if you have a heart. So rest in peace, Willie Mays. Everybody who loved it, and that's the thing, everybody loved Willie Mays. It doesn't matter what team you rooted for. Willie Mays was baseball and will always be baseball. And so rest in peace to Willie Mays and everybody who loved
nickname.
him. Yeah. Say Hey Kid. Definitely one of the best baseball nicknames of all time for sure. We're going to come back in a minute. We're going to get back to talking about the Dodgers, specifically their City Connect uniforms that they announced the other day. Vince and I don't disagree very often on this podcast, but I have a feeling our opinions won't be exactly the same on these. So we will be back in a minute to talk about the City Connects. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Policy Genius. Do you have people counting on you financially? If so, you know that life insurance is super important to protect your loved ones in case something were to happen to you. But finding the right life insurance policy can be time-consuming and overwhelming. That's where Policy Genius comes in. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace and saves you time and money so you can provide your family a financial safety net starting today. Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. Back when I got my first life insurance policy, as I've told you guys, it was because my wife's cousin showed up on our doorstep pretending he just wanted to visit us and then sold us a life insurance policy. Years later, we wised up. We got help from an actual expert and got a policy that met our needs much better. And I wish the Policy Genius had been around back then because it would save me time and money on that whole process. So if you don't have life insurance, it's time to get some. And if you do, it's still worth checking to make sure you have the right coverage. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. This episode is also brought to you by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Dodgers, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. So don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. I am an independent contractor here on this podcast, and that means that my taxes are a little bit more complicated. And so I need somebody with expertise helping me with my taxes each year. And with over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. So whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in the episode description below. Hey, we're back. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks to our everydayers. Please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Thanks for being here with us live. Be sure to become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles over on YouTube, and catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app by searching for Dodgers. And let's talk City Connects, Vince. The Dodgers officially unveiled them the other day on Monday, and they were what had been leaked out over the last month or so, much to most people's chagrin. And I guess let's let you go first, Vince. What are your thoughts on the City Connect uniforms?
Yeah, so when they came out and we didn't really give any opinions, and I didn't really give any opinions on social media. I kind of wanted to wait and see what the details were going to be, and the flex of whatever paint, whatever you want to call it, are meant to represent different seats at Dodger Stadium. Okay, that one I can buy. The front part of the Los Angeles is kind of meant to be the upward trajectory of LA. I forget what they said about the numbers on the back, but all in all, to say the details didn't really make me like them any much more than I would have if they just hadn't said anything. Like it made now, and then we saw the numbers where a single digit number gets a zero put in front of it. That's a small thing that I normally wouldn't care about, but then I'm already on the negative train, so I'm like, let me complain about that too. So yeah, I it's not that I dislike them like a lot. I just don't like them personally, and I do want to see how they look on the field, because the all blue ones were the same thing. I think I said is I want to see them on the field. And when I saw them on the field, I didn't love them. When they moved over to the not all blue, just with the white pants, that was a little bit better. I feel like they're going to look fine on the field just because you can't see the things that probably bother you, some people, the most, which is like the numbers on the back and the little flex and that type of stuff.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought too, that I think when people see them in action, they won't hate them as much. Don't think they'll necessarily love them. One of my issues with the previous City Connects for Dodgers is that they weren't really, it just looked like an alternate uniform. It put the words in Spanish. So yes, it did tie to the Spanish speaking portion of the community. But other than that, it didn't really scream Los Angeles. And they did, I guess there was like skyline stuff in the shadows that you couldn't really see very well. And I have been underwhelmed by a lot of the City Connects this year it's a lot of dark on dark, and when you look at the details, like the Rays, I think it was the Rays, that like you look at the details and the highlight color stuff, they look kind of cool, but overall they kind of remind me of the 2019 Players Weekend uniforms, just it's dark on dark and look like, a slow pitch softball team that takes themselves a little too seriously. And so I'm glad the Dodgers didn't do dark on dark again. But my main opinion on these City Connects this year is just mostly kind of underwhelming. Like it's just kind of, it's nothing about it screams LA again, like unique to LA. And yeah, the script Los Angeles on the front is designed to mimic the Los Angeles Coliseum, which, and I mentioned this on Twitter. I don't know that I'm the target audience for an LA City Connect jersey because I've never lived in LA. Even when I lived in Southern California, I didn't think of myself as being from LA. My connections to LA are the Dodgers and the local channels I got on TV growing up, So yeah, I mean, if you ask, are you from LA or San Diego? And those are the only options. Yeah, I'm from LA, but I'm not really from LA. And so, I may not have that same LA connection as a lot of fans do, but mostly like I like the logo on the hat. I think I think it looks good. A blue hat with that logo, I would absolutely buy. It's the kind of hat I would buy. It doesn't feel to me like the kind of hat that a major league team would wear with that logo. It feels a little too gimmicky, a little too Disneylandish. But Disneyland is my second favorite place in the world behind Dodger Stadium. So I like something that's Disneylandish. I'm just looking at my tweet to remember the other things, but yeah. So really, I do think they will look fine on the field. I think when we're watching, it'll be like, those look just fine. The numbers are a little concerning. The leading zero, I don't mind. The fact that the bottom of the number gets cut off. So like Clayton Kershaw's number 22 looks like 77 a little bit. I don't love that. I feel like that's something that, okay, you tried too hard to be unique and you should have looked at how does each name and number combination look? Oh, look, it looks terrible for some of these. Let's move the name down and put the full number.
Yeah, the other part for me is that I had seen the concept already that had the like navy blue pants that kind of matched the hat. And I actually liked the way that looked. But then when it came out and it was all white, it just took me back to, okay, well, I don't like the jersey. So now I really don't like it as a whole. But I think if they would have had those navy blue pants, like the one concept of Mookie that was out there in the Twitter sphere, I think it would have been a lot cleaner look. It would have been, enough of a difference, and it would have looked a lot better on field. They're just gonna look like white jerseys from afar on the field. Like even the Jason Heyward, they released a photo for the Jason Heyward bobblehead, and he's wearing the City Connect. And maybe when you get him up close, you're gonna be able to see the little specks, but it just looks like a white jersey that he's wearing.
Yeah. And, the good news is there is precedent for the Dodgers changing their City Connect pants because fans didn't like them. And so maybe they will go with darker pants at some point. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think we'll be seeing them. I don't know if both games against the Angels this weekend.
And they said Saturday.
Just Saturday. Yeah, the Dodgers this weekend have another one of those weird 2-game series with the Angels and then a Sunday off. This will be actually 3 years in a row that they've done that, Friday and Saturday against the Angels and then Sunday off. The last 2 years it was leading into the All-Star break, so they just got an extra day for the All-Star break. This year it's just in June randomly, so they get a random Sunday off, which will be fine because that'll be their first day off in a couple of weeks at that point. And depending on how Bobby Miller does tomorrow, the bullpen may need that break. But yeah, I'm excited to see the City Connects on the field. I'm excited to see if people's opinions of them soften. Because again, my main overwhelming feeling is underwhelming. It's just not much to say about it.
Yeah, I also, not sure if it was because it was the second version of it or just in general. I feel like all the other teams had a lot better rollouts and unveilings, and the Dodgers just kind of said, here's our City Connect. They have like one teaser the night before, but then after that, it's just like a handful of generic photos of Ohtani, Freeman, and Will Smith in the parking lot at Dodger Stadium.
And a couple graphics with descriptions of what the elements mean. So I do like that they have the hashtag ITFTB on the jersey. I wouldn't mind seeing that bigger, let's make it a Vin Connect, Vin Scully is Los Angeles, you want City Connect. Let's do the LA Vins, maybe that'll be the third one. Maybe the Dodgers get a third one before the Yankees get one. So we'll see. Yeah. So I think that'll do it for us today. Great game for the Dodgers, or great inning for the Dodgers that, made up for a bad game. Bobby Miller makes his return on Wednesday, which is exciting. Hopefully it will go well. And all in all, Dodgers won the first 2 games of the series, and, it's the score at the end of the game that matters, not the score at any point before the end of the game. So Shohei Ohtani is off to a hot start as the Dodgers leadoff hitter. And the bottom of the order is
Miguel Vargas has been hitting.
Miguel Vargas is hitting, and you know what? He may be forcing his way into this lineup. But although I don't know, because Pages is hitting too, and Heyward and Teoscar, unless they decide to try to make Vargas a third baseman again, it's still going to be a challenge to get him. I'm guessing he's El Bencho again on Wednesday, since it's a right-hander on the mound. But then it's Ty Block against the Dodgers on Thursday. And so probably get Vargas in there. And Chris Taylor hit a triple. So you know what? It's a crazy world. And Miguel Vargas keeps his streak alive of the Dodgers being undefeated when he gets a hit. He tried to ruin it by getting
Rojas.
Rojas. Tried to ruin it by getting a hit late in this game when it looked like they were going to lose. But you know what? Rojas just keep getting hits, bro. It's working. So you got anything else, Vince?
Nope, that's it. Appreciate you guys putting up with any background noise I had. I couldn't leave Jeff alone on this one.
Yeah. Somebody asked how long your beard is, Vince. Have you measured it?
I have not measured it, but it's almost 2 years.
Like 9 inches worth-ish, probably.
Yeah. I'm going to have to measure it later.
Yeah, mine's only like half an inch, but I got more
I shouted
gray.
out earlier in the comments.
What's that?
They said we both have good beard games earlier in the comments.
Oh, nice. That's I appreciate that. But that's not something that even 42-year-old me ever thought I would hear somebody say about me, that I have a nice beard, because I couldn't grow facial hair until well into my 40s. But here we are, gray beard and black beard. So that'll do it for gray beard and black beard today. Thank you all for being with us, especially if you're live with us. We appreciate that. Thank you to our everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning, and you can make that easy on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels over on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I am on Twitter at Snydog. Both of our DMs are open over there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.